Good afternoon. I'm Patricia Spears Jones, and I'm sitting in a little chair next to a lovely table with a hard hat on it because I'm at Poet's House, which is under major reconstruction and renovation after last year's awful flood. And Poet's House, of course, as we know, has been under some other pressures as well, but hopefully it will reopen soon. But before that happens, they've been asking people like me to do like readings that sort of represent a connection to this terrific organization. My first big showcase reading was for my first ever book of poetry. Ta-da! The Weather That Kills, and I was one of the showcase readers. And it was a very important event for me, and but also very poignant because it was also the year that a book by my advisor, Lynda Hull, was released after her passing. And so I read from this book, and I will read from it. And then I'm going to read a poem of hers that I also read at that initial reading. I miss Lynda, and she was an amazing poet. And I know that she has, through the efforts of many people, uh, continued to assert a certain amount of poetic magic in this world. Um, anyway, I'm going to read a couple of poems from the book. April, since, and this is for Gene Bignato. Gene was my neighbor in on the Upper West Side. He was alas a victim of AIDS. But before all of that, he was an incredible photographer, and he took that fabulous picture of me that's on the back of The Weather That Kills. And he also was one of those guys who photographed a lot of the performers for After Dark, which was a serious gay magazine, performance events magazine back in the 1980s. April, for Jean Maggiato. In the Greenwich Village doorway, two men kissing start laughing. A book jacket's constructivist type, handsome in bold black, red, and white, hawks the Book of Pain. Accidental illiteracy. It is titled The Book of Rain, and it costs too much. Today, it feels harder to care. Sunshine's a weak promise, as are daffodils poking up out of the battered soil in Washington Square. Later, on the Uptown IRT, this legless man scoots towards each of us, seeking gifts of spring. The intemperate flesh of new lovers, the gauzy music of crisp cotton skirts, prep school boys' flawless mirth, the hard-won indifference of past mugging victims. We drop not a dime in his dirty palm, unsurprised by our obduracy. He swings out the door onto the subway platform where a short, fat Russian man plays Stars and Stripes Forever on an amplified harmonica. Walking up the dingy stairs at 72nd and Broadway, there is just enough faith in muddled weather to remember nature's seasonal sufficiency. First, those struggling flowers. Then, as the yellow to green leaves fan out like new skirts on a windy day, sweet singing birds come feasting in the very center of the city, followed by bright strokes of lightning arching the Hudson. Thunder's callous drumming resonates as again rain falls cold, but not as cold as the day before. And this is another poem that's for poets, and it's dedicated to, or it's really about Francischung. And in some ways, it's about a lot of loss because there had been a great deal of it. And she was one of the first of the poets I know to pass. And there are all these people who would have read this poem many years ago, and they're now also gone. Right. Joss in memory of Francischung. The coffin appears to hold two Francischungs. Francis, dutiful daughter, teacher. Francis, poet, myth maker, chronicler of farces. Facing this coffin so large it could contain another body, her family sits. Huge wheels of flowers greet each of us mourners. Red flowers, pink ones, orange too, as white satin streamers slash the bouquets with Chinese ideographs. Do they say, goodbye, you've been good? Do they say, life is too short and pain too long? Do they say, forgive her? I feel like a fraud here. I don't know Chinese. I don't know the right in this grieving. I do understand her mother who rises up weeping, then falls back into her chair. Her son catches her gentle. People walk in, bow toward the family, then walk to the middle of the room where a large urn holds hundreds of joss sticks. Each picks a new one, lights it, then adds the lit stick to all the others. As incense rises to the electric light, they bow before the coffin, then return to their seats. I sit on the side, watch. The incense is as constant as noisy Mulberry Street traffic. In the only playground in Chinatown, children are squealing, cursing, while the winter heat dissipates. Before leaving, I pick up a piece of folded white paper and hard candy. Inside the paper is a nickel, prosperity. The hard candy is pure sugar, sweetness. Soon it is all gone. Like this life spent so quickly, and yes, we are sweeter for it. Mulberry's nasty bustle stops my tears. Francis would have found the proper nuanced emotion in the elaborate scenes in Chinese opera, how the young maiden finds her way across the mad river, yet dies before her true love can claim her, or how a young woman moves from China to Guatemala to the rumble of New York's Chinatown with a face forever young. She would have made a tender, witty poem, like one in Ordinary Women that we printed on the eve of a new decade when the first sweetness tasted best. And then I'm going to read a poem that I read in that reading by Lynda Hull. Lynda was a white girl from Newark, New Jersey. And she always sort of pointed that out because her best friends in high school were all Black. And so this is Siobhan, and this is definitely her connection to those young Black women. And this was in The Only World, which, and I'm sure all of these poems are now in the collected poems of us. Siobhan. Fever, downright dirty sweat of a heat wave in May, turning everyone pure body, back of knee, cleavage, each hidden crease, nape of neck turning steam, deep in last night's vast factory, the secret wheels that crank the blue machinery of weather bestowed the sudden cool, the lake misting my morning walk, this vacant lot lavish with Irish, saffron, indigo, bearded and striated, a shock of lavender clouds among shattered brick like cumulus that sail the tops of high-rises, clear evenings, surprising as the iris garden I used to linger in, a girl distant from me, now as a figure caught in green glass, and an oasis gleamed cool with oval plaques naming blooms Antoinette, my blue sunset, festival queen, this morning's Irish frill, damp as fabulous gowns after dancing those rummage sale evening gowns church ladies gave us another hot spring 1967. Joanne, who soon leaves school 14 pregnant. Valerie, with her straightened, bouffant hair, that endless rooftop season before the panic and sizzle the torch divided cities. They call me cousin on the light side. Camphoras, awash in rusty satin rosettes, in organdy chiffon, we practice girl group radio hits. Martha Reeves, but especially Supremes. Joanne vamping Diana, me and Valerie doing Flo and Mary's background moans, my blonde hair pinned beneath Joe's Monday Sunday wig. The barest blue essence of evening in Paris scented our homes. We perfected all the gestures, Joanne's liquid hands sculpting air, her fingers graceful, cupping, wrist turning, palm held flat, stop in the name of love, pressing against the sky's livid contrails. A landscape flagged with laundry, tangled aerials and billboards, the blackened railroad bridges and factories ruinous in their fumes. Small hand held against the flood of everything to come, the savage drifting years. I'm a lucky bitch, engulfed in the decade's riotous swells, that lovely gesture, the dress, plumage, electrifying the fluid force of that young body. She was gang raped later that year. The rest, as they say, is history. History. When I go back, I pour the phone book for names I'll never call. Peach Pavilion, Amethyst, Surprise, cousin on the light side. Then to these iris, their piercing ambrosial essence, the heart surprised, dark and bitter. It's been a real pleasure to do this for Poets House and to know that so many poets have read here and will at some point read again.